Si necesitas reggaetón, dale. Sigue bailando, mami, no pare.
Math morning! This is Mr. Durkis coming at you again. You guys just finished Unit 0 and we're reviewing now. You're looking at a cat riding a burrito, listening to reggaeton. Why is that happening? I'm not sure, but it is. So let's move on to the review. So congratulations, so far you've covered a lot. We started with order of operations. You went to translating verbal phrases. Then you did real numbers. After that, you added and you subtracted the real numbers. Then you multiplied and divided. And lastly, you combined like terms and learned about the distributive property. So you should be proud of yourself. You finished 6 lessons. That's a great accomplishment. And after you do the review, you can take tests on these. So take your time, go through this, finish the review packet after, and you will be prepared for the test. So we're going to start off. This was from the first lesson, 0.1, the order of operations. We have GEMDAS. G stands for grouping symbols, E exponents, multiply or divide comes next, add and subtract comes after that. We have an example over here that we're going to do together. So first, we look at, does this have any grouping symbols? I see a bracket and I see parentheses. Those are both grouping symbols, so we want to do the one on the inside first. Okay, so I'm going to do this 4 minus 2 first. When I do this, I copy everything down so I make sure I don't make any mistakes. So I'm not changing the 15. I'm not changing that minus. The bracket and the 10 minus stays the same. This 4 minus 2, that becomes 2. So that's the only thing I changed, and I keep the 2 squared. That's the only thing I changed in the whole thing. Now I need to simplify. So do I have more grouping symbols? Yes. I have these parentheses right here and the brackets. All right. So I look inside the bracket. I have 10 minus 2 squared. I can either subtract 2 from 10 first or do 2 squared. When I look over exponent, that comes before subtraction. So I'm going to do 2 squared first. That becomes 4. So I copy everything down again and I change 2 squared to 4. So I have 15 minus bracket 10 minus 4. All right. I still have this grouping symbol, these brackets, so I need to do 10 minus 4 next. So I write 15 again, minus 10 minus 4, that is 6. I no longer need the brackets, I can just write it there. And the last thing I'm going to do, 15 minus 6, 9. Alright, so your answer there is 9. This question over here, we're going to evaluate. So we have 3a squared plus 5a when a equals 2. So when you see this part over here, anytime you see an a, you substitute it with a 2. So I'm going to rewrite this expression. 3 instead of a, I put in a 2. And when I write it, I keep it in parentheses. I have to remember the squared part. Then I have plus 5a instead of a. I do parentheses and write it 2. Alright, so now I look up here. Do I have any grouping symbols? Well, I have parentheses, right, over here on the left and on the right. But there's no operation inside, it's just a 2. So I don't need to do anything on the inside of those. Next, I have exponents. Do I have exponent? Yes, it's right there. So I change 2 squared first. So it becomes 3, 2 squared, that's 4, plus 5 times 2. So now I have 3 times 4 plus 5 times 2, and times is multiply. So should I multiply first or add the 4 and the 5 together? Well, I look up here, multiply is here, add is here, so I need to do multiply first. So I'll do 3 times 4, that's 12, plus 5 times 2. and then I have add and multiply. Well, I need to multiply this before I add, so I'm going to do this one over here now. 12 plus 5 times 2, that's 10. And lastly, I can add those together. 12 plus 10 is 22. So that is your final answer. All right, so this question over here says solve using mental math. It says 3g equals 21. When I look at this, I don't see a plus, a minus, a multiply, or divide. I just see the number next to the letter. When you don't do an operation, it means multiply. So this is really 3 times g equals 21. So 3 times what number equals 21? Well, I know that 3 times 7 equals 21. So this g must equal 7. So g equals 7. There we go. We solved using mental math. This one over here is 5 a solution. What I have to do is take 5, plug it in for this g, simplify, and see if this is a true statement. So I'm going to do that now. 5, instead of g, I'm going to put this 5. Then I copy everything else. Minus 3 is greater than 20. Now I need to simplify. I have 5 times 5 minus 3. So should I minus first or multiply? Well, the order of operations GEMDAS says that you multiply first. So I'll do 25 minus 3 is greater than 20. Now I can subtract these. 25 minus 3, 22 is greater than 20. So is this a solution? Is this a true or false statement? 22 is greater than 20. That is a true statement. So I can write true. Is 5 a solution? Yes. All right, so you need this part for your answer. A way that I like to remember if this is true or false is the greater than sign always wants to eat the bigger number. Pretend it's a mouth and it's hungry. It wants more food. So is 22, is that more food than 20? Yes. So it's looking the right way. It's eating the 22. All right. This was one of your favorite questions from, I believe, the second lesson. So find the unit rate in feet per second. All right. So unit rate, this is a rate over here. The unit rate, the denominator, the number on the bottom is going to be 1. And we want it in feet per second. And if you remember, per means divide. So it's feet divided by second. So what we do, we need to multiply this times some fractions. All right. In your 0.2 packet, you have these conversions. So first thing I'm going to do is change miles to feet. All right, so if I want to cancel this mile, I know I need to put 1 mile on the bottom. All right, because this mile cancels that mile. This part right here, this needs to be equal to 1 mile. So if you look back at your sheet, 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. Okay, so now I have feet. That's what I wanted, feet per second. But I have feet and I have hours. So I need to change this hours to second. So I'm going to multiply it by another fraction. I will put 1 hour on the top so that this hour and that hour cancels. Here I need to write something that is equal to 1 hour. You might know this. You can look on your sheet, but 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. So this is equivalent. So now I have feet per minute. I'm getting close. I want feet per second. So I'll multiply this by another fraction. I'll put 1 minute on the top so that it can cancel with that minute. And you know that 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. If you don't know that, you can look on your chart from 0.2. So I have this. Now I have feet per second. To find out my answer, I need to multiply all these together. So 60 times 5,280 times 1 times 1, and that's going to be feet, because I have feet over here. And on the bottom, I multiply 2 times 1 times 60 times 60. You can just put this in a calculator and see what you get. So I just put in my calculator, and I got 316,800 feet divided by 7,200 seconds. All right. The changes to the unit rate, I want to have feet on the top, seconds on the bottom, but I just want 1 second. So to do that, I just take 316,800 and divide it by 7,200. So I'm going to put that in my calculator now. I'm going to divide. I put in my calculator and I got 44 feet per second. So I looked at my answer, feet per second. That's what I have, feet in second. It's a unit rate. There's a 1 down here. You can't see it, but it's just 1 second. So that is my unit rate. Oh, here's a good question. So this is from some of the applications you did. Find the area of a trapezoid. This is a trapezoid. That's the formula. What's the area of a trapezoid with B1 equals 15, B2 equals 17, H equals 5? So I look at this formula over here. I'll write it again. B1 plus B2 times H divided by 2. I need to evaluate. So B1 is 15. When I see B1 right here, I'm going to copy it over, but I'm just going to write 15 instead of B1. B2 equals 17. So I'll do plus 15. That's 17. The H is 5. So instead of H, I put 5 right there, and it's divided by 2. The way this looks over here, right, B1, we said that was 15, so it means this side is 15. B2, that's down here, so that's 17. And H is right there, that's 5. So this is a real trapezoid with those numbers. Now we need to simplify. So the order of operations, we do the parentheses first. 15 plus 17, that is going to be 32, I believe. So we have 32 times 5 divided by 2. 32 times 5, I'll put that in my calculator. 32 times 5 equals 160, and I divide that by 2. 160 divided by 2, that's 80. So your answer is 80 right there. Let's talk about some real numbers. So if you remember, there's different types of real numbers. We'll start off with whole numbers. You can make a little bracket. That's a bracket sign. Whole numbers, they start with 0 and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and they go on for infinity. So these are whole numbers. There's no decimals in there. Those would be rational numbers, but they start with 0 and you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until forever. Integers are similar, but they start with negative numbers. So I'll do ... because it goes forever, infinity in the negative direction. And they start with -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And they continue to infinity in the positive direction. Those are integers. Rational numbers are anything that can be expressed as a fraction. So I'll write that down. Any number that can be expressed, oops, let me fix that, as a fraction. So for example, if we had 7 over 2, right, that really equals 3.5. So if you see a decimal, 3.5 you can do that as a fraction, and that will be a rational number. If you go back to the other video, rational numbers are either terminating, like this one, it just ends, or they can be repeating. So if I had 1.3434 and it goes forever, this is also a rational number. Let's talk about absolute value. So this looks like these bars, and you have a number on the inside. The definition is the distance from 0. So how far away is 3 from 0, or negative 3 from 0? We have a number line. Let's say that is 0. This will be negative 1. That's negative 2. That's negative 3. So 1, 2, 3. This is going to be equal to 3 because it's 3 away from 0. What about the absolute value of 3? Well, how far away is that from 0? 1, 2, 3. It's also 3 away from 0. So the absolute value of 3 also equals 3. Alright, so let's put these in order from least to greatest. Least is the smallest, greatest is the largest. So what I do first is I change these fractions into decimals. So 1 over 8, I'll just put that in my calculator. When I put in my calculator, I get 0.125. Alright, there's 1, and I'll put it right there. 1.2, I'll put it there. I'm going to change this to a improper fraction before I change it to a decimal. So I have to do 3 times 1, right? You do multiply first, that's 3. And then I add 2. So 3 plus 2, that's the same as 5 over 3. Now I'm going to put that in my calculator. And I get 1.6, and this 6 goes forever. It just keeps repeating. So I have these. I need to put in order from least to greatest. So 0.125, that's less than 1. 1.2, that's greater than 1. 1.6, that's greater than 1.2. So they actually are already in order from least to greatest. So that makes my job a lot easier. When you write these, you just want to write not these numbers, but the numbers up here. So in order from least to greatest, 1/8, 1, 1.2, and then 1 and 2/3. Alright, now we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. So first we have 17 plus negative 5. If you see a plus and a minus next to each other, that means minus. So this can just be 17 minus 5, and that equals 12. Over here, we have 9 minus negative 10. Some people were getting confused when you saw a parenthesis and then subtraction or addition signs on the inside or the outside. Well, if there's no operations, right, and there's no number here, you can just, if they're both negative, it becomes positive. So negative, negative, that's really 9 plus 10, and that's a 19. And that's the answer right there. Over here, we're multiplying. When you multiply, this is 2 negatives. Your answer will be positive. So 9 times 4 is 36. Over here, 8 divided by negative 2. So when you divide and you have 1 negative, my answer will be negative. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Alright, let's do some rational numbers now. So I would just put these in the calculator. If you want to add them without it, you could line them up like this. 5.95. You need to line up the decimal. This is where people were making mistakes on the first quiz. So I'll put the 4.3 right there. So you don't need to do it this way. You can just stick it in your calculator, but I'll do it like this for you. So 5, that's really a 0 there. 5 plus 0, 5. 9 plus 3 is 12. So I'll put the 2 there, the decimal. Carry the 1. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 4 is 10. Alright, over here, I'm just going to put this one in my calculator. Negative 1.8 minus 3.4. Did I say negative 1.8? I meant negative 8.1 minus 3.4. So if I have two numbers and I'm subtracting them, my answer is going to be negative. When they're both negative and you're subtracting, you really just add them together and keep the negative sign. So in my calculator, I put 8.1 plus 3.4, and I got 11.5, and I know my answer is negative because a negative minus a negative will be negative. Alright, over here, 2.5 times negative 4. When you're multiplying and you have one negative number, your answer is going to be negative. So I'll start with that, and then I'll stick it in my calculator. 2.5 times 4. 2.5 times 4, and I got negative 10. Ooh, we got some decimals over here. You do this the long way, but it's much easier to put in your calculator. So I'm going to write 25.8 divided by 4.3, and I got 6. Perfect. Alright, this is where it got a little tricky for some people too. When you add fractions. Alright, so this first one, you need to look. Are the denominators the same? This is 5 and that's 5. If that's true, then you just add the top. 4 plus 2 is 6, and then you keep the bottom 5. Alright. This one is subtraction. It might not be that clear, but it's subtraction. So I need to make the denominators be the same. So this 7 and 2, I know those, if I multiply them together, it equals 14. So I'll multiply this by 7 over 7, and I'll multiply this by 2 over 2. 2 times 6, 12. 2 times 7 is 14, minus 7 times 1, 7. 2 times 7, 14. Alright, they have the same denominator now, so I can just subtract the numerators on top. 12 minus 7, that's 5, and I keep the bottom, the denominator, of 14. Alright, over here, when you multiply, I think multiplying is easier than adding fractions. You just take the numerator, multiply by the numerator, 7 times 2, 14, and the bottom, 8 times 5, and that's 40. You need to simplify. These are both even numbers. They can be divided by 2. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. 40 divided by 2 is 20. This cannot be simplified anymore, so there we go. Now we have 1/3 divided by 3/8. When you divide, you keep the first fraction the same, but you flip the second one. So I'll write 8 divided by 3, and we multiply. So then I just do the top times the top. 1 times 8, and my numerator will be 8. And the bottom, 3 times 3 is 9. So this is 8/9. Alright, let's get some mixed numbers. So when I do this, I just change them to improper fractions. So 9 times 1 is 9. 9 plus 4 is 13. So this is really 13 over 9 plus 1/2. I need to keep the denominators the same. So I'll change them both to 18. 9 times 2. So this one I'll multiply 2 over 2. And this one times 9 over 9. So this equals 2 times 13. What's that? 26 over 18. Plus 1 times 9 is 9 over 18. I add that together. 26 plus 9. That's going to be 35 over 18. And can this be simplified? No, it cannot. Alright, over here, now we're subtracting. 5 3/4 minus 5 3/4. Well, look what we have here. These are the same exact thing, so if we subtract them, equals 0. This one over here, 2 and 3/4. Let me change this to a mixed number. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3, 11. I keep the denominator 4. I'm multiplying it by -6, so that's really -6 over 1. When I multiply it, 11 times -6, that's -66. On the bottom, 4 times 1 is 4. Can I simplify this? Yes, they're both negative, or they're both even, not negative. So I can divide them by 2. -66 divided by 2 is -33. 4 divided by 2 is 2. There we go. Alright, over here we have 8 divided by 2 and 5/9. I'm going to change this to an improper fraction. So I have 8 divided by, let's see here, 2 times 9 is 18, plus 5 is 23, so this is 23 over 9. So I have 8 over 1 divided by, and I won't do 23 over 9, I need to flip it first. So really 9 over 23. Alright, 8 times 9, that is 72. 1 times 23, 23. That is simplified. Perfect. Alright, this division rule. This got people a little bit mixed up, but it's really, right, it's doable. You can do this. So when you have in the denominator, you have a plus or a minus sign, and there's only one number in the denominator. I meant numerator. You have a plus or a minus sign. You can break it into two fractions. So each one, you'll have the 5 on the bottom, right? And then in the middle, you'll have a minus sign. The first one is 15x. The second one is 20. So you just split it in half. Now we need to simplify. So I'll do this one first. What's 20 divided by 5? That's 4. Over here, so this 15x, I can't really divide 5 into x, so I'll do it over here. 15 divided by 5, that equals 3, and I'll just put the x next to it. So this equals 3x minus 4. That is the division rule. Alright, this is the last one. Combine like terms and distributive property. So combining like terms, that's when you have terms that are the same, so they have the same variable with the same exponent. So I look over here, that's 3y, and that's 8y. If I combine those together, that is 11y. Over here, -10 plus 4. Well, -10 plus 4, that is -6. Right. Over here, the distributive property says you take the number on the outside and you distribute. You multiply it by both of the terms on the inside. So 2 times 7p, right? When you multiply, you do 2 times 7, that's 14, and you keep the variable. 2 times -3, you got to remember this is negative. So 2 times -3 will be -6. So this answer is 14p minus 6. This one over here, right, we have this 3h over here, and then we have 3 times the parentheses 2h plus 1. So I want to distribute this first. 3 times 2h and 3 times 1. And this is actually a -3. So you need to be careful when you multiply. So -3 times 2h, well, that's going to be a negative number. 3 times 2 is 6, and then I keep the h. -3 times 1, that's also negative, and 3 times 1 is 3. And I can't forget to bring down this 3h. So I have 3h minus 6h minus 3. Now I can combine these two h's. So I have 3h minus 6h. Well, 3 minus 6, that's going to be -3, and I keep the h, and then minus 3. All right, so that's it. Once you do the review packet, you'll be ready for the test. Right? If you need to watch this again, if it was a little confusing, right, watch it again, try the packet. You can go back into the old videos in your old packets, review it all, and then you'll be ready for the test. Good luck. Dirkus out.